welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, fully loaded show for you guys. A new stadium for the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe, possibly. We're going to dive into it. A huge name is coming to visit the Pittsburgh Steelers at the same time because Mike Tomlin, sometimes he just works some magic, and we're going to hope that he works a little bit more when that player is actually in the building. And two names that the Steelers could still sign that are being somewhat linked to them late in the offseason. Plenty of news here as we approach rookie minicamp this weekend. Football's officially back. Like there's nothing better than football officially being back. It was a beautiful weekend. We enjoyed a little barbecue cookout, drank some brews, ate some dogs, and some moldy hamburger buns. Shout out to Sam's Club for those. But how you feeling, my friend?
Feel good. Yeah, I don't think I got a moldy hamburger run, but yeah, Noah was very kind. He hosted us and the rest of our team at Fan Nation Pittsburgh at his house. It was awesome. I had a lot of fun. I kicked some ass in cornhole. I did. My brother and I play a lot, so I've had some practice.
It was actually very impressive. I was sitting there talking to I invited the neighbors over, and I was talking. I was like, "Damn, dude, I didn't realize Steven was this good. I would have picked a different game. Smoking everybody.
I should have been hustling people. We should have played for money.
You should have. And honestly, Jillian. So Steven was teamed up with my fiance Jillian. She would have been all in on it. She would have been like, "All right, let's we'll run the streets here. This is how we do this." So definitely could have made a couple of bucks, a couple of brews in. I definitely would have tossed some money on the table, especially after the Kentucky Derby didn't go my way. Shout out Sun Thunder. Should have came out with some money. Didn't. It's okay. We'll get them next time. Let's talk some Pittsburgh. Oh, go ahead.
No. Yeah, I feel very like I didn't have the presence of mind to bet on the Kentucky Derby, and I'm glad I didn't because I would have been in the same boat.
No, nobody's betting on Mage. Nobody's looking at the name Mage and going, "That's the winner of the Kentucky Derby."
Cool name. Not even a cool name.
No, it's such a boring name. It's like you have a horse. The horse is your obligation as a horse owner is to pick the coolest name possible, and you came up with Mage.
Right.
Awful. Shouldn't have won, but shout out to them, I guess. FanDuel taking another bunch, bite out of the wallet there, but that's all right. It was a good weekend. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football news and notes. We got a possible new stadium, Andy Weidl's press conference, and then a big name setting up a little invite visit. I guess it would be an unofficial visit to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we'll start with the new stadium. The Steelers promoted David Morehouse, a former Pittsburgh Penguins executive that actually helped them land the deal at PPG Paints Arena, to executive vice president of strategy after joining the team last year as just a senior advisor. So his role will be, quote unquote, strategic direction of Acrisure Stadium and operations. On top of that, I believe it's like over a $1 million, $100 million, operation to get out the troughs, put some urinals in the restrooms. We talked about that last time. Steven loves the conversations in the restroom at halftime. It is what it is. You look at all this, you start thinking, okay, the lease is up at 2030. Maybe the Steelers look at a new home. Maybe they leave the North Shore. It just seems that all these dots are connecting. Do you look at this and think, oh, man, maybe the Steelers are get a new home? Or do you just think, Acrisure Stadium is about to be the next Jerry World and things are about to bump out over on the North Shore?
I don't think so. I like this setup they have now. Acrisure Stadium, I feel like, is a nice spot. It's in the city. I feel like there's plenty of room for everything that Steelers fans need. I like the setup they have there. I think it's not very likely that they end up moving the stadium. I think it's more likely that they're fishing for a renovation. And this is all this is just kind of a setup over the next few years. There's going to be but conversations with the county, who I think owns the stadium technically. Like the Steelers just lease it from them. But there's going to be haggling over, okay, how much is the county going to pay for renovations and stuff like that? What kind of tax breaks will they get? That seems more likely to me than a complete relocation. Because I don't know, like moving out to Cranberry or like the
No,
suburbs, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I feel like that would not actually really benefit anyone, quite honestly.
no, no. You'd be getting a lot of upset Steelers fans. On top of that, like you talk about moving in town, the biggest problem with the Penguins is that it is impossible to do anything before a Penguins game. Like your options are go
Right.
to 3 bars right on that block or just go straight into the arena. There's no tailgates. It's perfectly set up. Sometimes you run into a little incident where the Pirates and the Steelers are playing, but even then it still works out for everybody. It's the perfect location. I will say this though, you just mentioned, the county's going to have to, and the Steelers do. They lease that property, and that lease is up in 2030. But I expect that to renew. Art Rooney came out and said that he expects that to renew. These are some numbers on the last two teams that upgraded their stadiums that put their original stadium or their last stadium up when the Steelers did right around that 2000 mark. The Titans paid $2.1 billion and the Browns paid $1 billion for just a renovation. So you're probably looking at the same for the Steelers. I don't know what that does. I don't really think that it does anything crazy for any of us. But what do you think? Like, you look at a new stadium. What do you even do? Like, do you put a dome in there? Do you change anything at all? Like, are the Steelers it's Heinz Field? Like, I feel like the classic look is just,
Yellow
that's
seats,
just part of
yellow
what it
seats.
is.
Yeah, yellow seats on the North Shore. Yeah, I don't really know what so I do know that Heinz or Acrisure is generally considered one of the worst, like not the
Oh
worst, but
yeah,
it is one of the older NFL stadiums out there. It hasn't been renovated, I think, since it's been
no, since its
built.
opening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's
2001.
it's mostly it's mostly the same. I don't know what specifically you'd have to upgrade. I've been there like as a fan and and to work a bunch of times, and it seemed fine to me.
Yeah,
But
nobody's freaking out over Acrisure Stadium. Do you think they
right,
put a dome in there?
oh
You put a roof in there?
no, no,
No,
you can't put a
I'm
dome.
100% for a roof in Acrisure Stadium. 100% been about a roof in Acrisure Stadium. Like, I just think
No,
it opens up so many possibilities. You could have a Super Bowl here. You could bring a Super Bowl to Pittsburgh. You're telling me you don't want a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh? Because Art
no,
Rooney wants a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. The city of Pittsburgh wants a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. You want a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh, you put a roof on that stadium.
yeah, but then I feel like you're portraying a little bit of the personality of the city, and
Retractable
there's like
roof. Retractable roof. Open that
retractable
bad boy
roof.
right up.
I'm not
Freezing
a
cold.
Well, yeah, but that's that's AFC North football, man. That's Pittsburgh. Like, come on, show a little grit. What are
Can't be a
we?
hot kitchen if it's freezing cold outside.
Can't be a
Can't.
what?
A hot
Can't be a
kitchen.
hot
Mike
kitchen.
Tomlin, AFC North hot kitchen. Can't be a hot
Mm-mm.
kitchen if it's freezing cold outside. I get what you're saying. I agree with it. Like, and are they going to put a roof on there? Probably not. I think if I'm sitting in that negotiation table and we're, in a board meeting and Art Rooney's sitting there and the guy from the CEO of Acrisure Stadium or whoever's sitting there and David Morehouse is sitting there, I'm just thinking, maybe I toss it out there. Maybe I just go, well,
Mhm.
what would be great for tourism and for the city and to develop new fans? And you want to know what would be awesome if we made it happen in the next 4 years and somehow we ended up in a Super Bowl? To play that Super Bowl in the city of Pittsburgh. I just, and like it's not like the NFL would be all about it. They would not be like, they love going to LA, they love going to Tampa, all these cool places. If you were like, hey, the city of Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to host a Super Bowl, fans would lose their minds. The league would lose their mind. It would work out so well. Like, and I get it, it's not going to happen, but like, that like there are few stadiums, there are a few places in the NFL that hold as much ground as Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And the league would they would be drooling over an opportunity to host a Super Bowl here.
Yeah, there's certainly some history, and this is just a football city in a way that
Yeah.
like LA and Miami, like they're great stadiums, and I'm sure they're great places for people to spend Super Bowl weekend, but they do not kind of have that passion behind football as a city like Pittsburgh does, and a
No.
region like Western Pennsylvania does.
Nope.
So that's certainly a draw, but I don't know. It just seems like every time, like it seems like that's what the Titans were trying to gun for. Like,
Yeah,
did they
but
really need a new stadium? I think
no.
they just wanted to host a Super Bowl, and
Yeah,
then
maybe Steelers next. There, it's not like we both know that it's just going to be like some
yeah,
fancy ketchup bottles and some new seats and
right.
you know,
There'll be
maybe
new
some new
luxury
grass.
boxes. There'll be new
Yeah, yeah,
luxury
yeah, yeah,
boxes or
yeah,
whatever. Like
yeah.
it's
Let me tell you, the luxury boxes. I sneak my way into there sometimes. Use the restroom after a game. You know, they're pretty nice. They're nice as is. I got no complaints for those luxury
Mhm.
boxes. But yeah, I agree. At this, think that it's just gonna be it's just gonna be cool. Like, new stadium, awesome. But if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm starting to get that in my head because I think in the next 5 years, maybe Heinz Field takes one massive upgrade, and it'll be cool. Like that'll be very exciting for all Steelers fans. All right, next thing on the news and notes here: Andy Weidl talked on Friday. A lot was said. I think the biggest thing that came out was his remarks about building the offensive line. He just hammered and hammered how important it was to build those trenches. Everybody knew that coming in here. Andy Weidl was that guy. He comes from Philadelphia. He's a former offensive lineman. Philly's got the best offensive line in football. Then he brings Isaac Seumalo and Nate Herbig over here, and then they go out and get Broderick Jones. This guy just loved it. All he could talk about was how you win football through the offensive line. And I loved his quote too. He said, these guys travel. These are this is the guys that you always rely on. You listen to that, you start looking back on the Steelers offseason. Did you get the hint that, maybe Andy Weidl played a super big role into what the Steelers did this offseason and put these pieces together?
I absolutely do. If for nothing else than just to kind of, I don't know. I don't think it's an attitude change, but it's definitely an emphasis on the offensive line and being tough and being physical and being able to out muscle teams.
Yeah.
This is just what Andy Weidl knows, to a certain extent. Like you said, he played offensive line, and that was, I think, what struck me the most when I was listening to him talk was he just basically said, like, I was an offensive lineman. Like, this is what I do. This is what I know. Like, this is how I would build a football team if and I don't think it's any more complicated than that. He's also seen NFL teams that he's been with, that he's worked for, win at the highest level, behind great offensive lines. And when you've already got a young quarterback that you're invested in, a top young receiver that you're invested in, the most expensive defense in football, like, you're invested at a lot of other positions beside the offensive line. I think they brought in Andy Weidl to say, this is where we need to focus now. Like, we've built this team in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of the pieces that are currently on this team that are going to be a part of our future. But the offensive line is a glaring deficiency, and it might be one of those things that's holding us back from unlocking, a new level and getting back to, unlocking that next level with Kenny and young guys and with that defense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what's cool is that, we've talked about the window being open, and we've also talked about what Omar Khan excels in, and that's just seeing the picture. Like, he's not the greatest. Oh, I know how to construct a football team perfectly, and I know the ins and outs of football better than anybody. He just knows how to be a general manager and be a successful one. And I think having Andy Weidl there, my thoughts were, what's awesome about this is that you made Omar Khan your general manager because he knows how to listen and construct and put everything that you're telling him into place correctly. And now he's got somebody who's built Super Bowl teams saying, hey, this is what we got to do. This is how we should do this. And Omar's just going, yeah, sounds good. I'll go make it happen. And then they put, in my opinion, the best offensive line the Steelers have had in over 5 years easily.
Oh, yeah.
But possibly, if everything works out for them and James Daniels turns it, because I look at James Daniels, he's 25 years old. Dude's got so much upside ahead of him. You stack him, he's a building block. Chooks is 25 years old. If he works out, and the Steelers love Chooks, whether he's that good or not, that's a building block too. Now you got Broderick Jones, who's 21 years old. Like, that guy's going to explode and hopefully be your franchise left tackle. Maybe Seumalo has 3 years in him, 4 years in him. Like, what this could turn into could be, the best offensive line the Steelers have had in a long time. You look at that and just say, hey, look at, like, we were giving us so much credit to Omar, and I still think Omar deserves all the credit. But Andy Weidl, at one point this offseason, there were reports saying, oh, Andy Weidl doesn't, he's got a back seat, in all this. They're not listening to him. Clearly they are. And those reports were super wrong because Andy Weidl Andy Weidl's fingerprints are all over what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing right now. And, it was cool. Like it was also, it was just cool. It was just cool to hear that, people, this is actually working. Like, like the vision of what is going to happen works. It's working.
I was going to say, it seems like Omar and Andy are kind of two arms of the same body. Andy's identifying, okay, we should get this guy and this guy and this guy, and Omar just knows how to go get him.
Yep.
I think that was kind of my takeaway. And then I also, like, to your point about this being the best offensive line they've had in 5 years. I think it is not just like, I think the top end talent, like your starters, your best five is not only the best that it's been in a while, but you also have like 8 guys that you'd be comfortable playing, like between. You have your top 5, but then adding, Jones, Nate Herbig,
and Dotson coming off the bench,
and
exactly. Dan Moore Jr. If Broderick Jones starts and you got Dan Moore, Kevin Dotson, Nate Herbig coming off the bench, on top of LaRaven Clark, which I don't know anything about him, but he's got experience, and you just drafted Spencer Anderson, like,
right.
That's a damn good offensive line. That's that's way better than last year. Or J.C. Hassenauer running the show back there with Kendrick Green being your security blanket. Like that was as bad as it got. Right. Full circle.
It's a whole room. It's not just a starting line. It's a whole room, which I think is notable too.
Yeah, huge. So shout out to Andy Weidl. I think, I think the big question now is like how long does this guy last? You heard him talk. You realize, okay, yeah, he's put this. I think he's got 1 year left in him. Like this is it. This is the last season.
He's done his job. Like honestly, like. I mean, you're hoping that everyone actually works out, and these picks and these free agent signings, these trades, that they all actually work out. But like to this point, there's Andy Weidl probably could not have done a better job than he's done.
Yeah. So shout out Andy Weidl. We got 365 days with him, probably less than that at this point. And then he's off somewhere being a GM for some football team and probably making it a good one because what we know about him is only good so far. All right, I think the biggest news and notes that happened over the weekend is a conversation between Mike Tomlin and a brother of probably the best player in Pittsburgh right now, TJ Watt. So Tomlin, just a little backstory. Tomlin posted a video on YouTube and then he shared it on Twitter of why the Steelers love brothers and siblings and just talked about, I think there was 3 of them. Part 1 was like the genetics. If JJ Watt comes out of the womb, chances are TJ is going to be pretty close to how great JJ Watt is. 2 was the exposure. And then he talked about, getting to meet TJ Watt as a little kid with a mohawk in the green room, watching JJ Watt and how that becomes more of a reality to those kids. And then the third one was just like, it's a brotherhood sport. How much closer can you get than brothers? And you're like, yeah, that's, it's very true, which is cool. I like for them to 1, acknowledge it, but for 2, explain it to everybody, because if you ask that in a press conference, he'd be like, no, I don't, we don't really have a fascination with brothers. To take that on by himself was cool. So JJ Watt replied to the video on Twitter and said, incredible coach and incredible human. There's a reason players would run through a brick wall for you. Been a pleasure hearing Derek and TJ share stories about you and your leadership. Hope to come visit sometime if you'll have me. Tomlin, after 8, so there's 86 comments under this JJ Watt thing. I would guess half of them are people saying, please sign in Pittsburgh. And the other half are people tagging Mike Tomlin saying, reply to this man right now. So Tomlin did and said, would love to have you come to the facility. You are welcome anytime. Fellas, have you ever wished you were a little bit taller? Maybe you matched on Tinder, but her profile says must be over 6 feet. Maybe your date wants to wear heels, but she can't because it'll make her taller than you. Well, I got the short kings covered with today's sponsors, Kanzuri. Kanzuri makes shoes that make you up to 2.8 inches taller without anyone knowing. Look, girls get heels, makeup, and push-up bras. Why can't men get a boost in confidence too? We're all the same height laying down, if you know what I mean. For a limited time only, our listeners get an extra 15% off your order with our code ALLSTEELERS at Kanzuri.com. The site is already 30% off, and with our code, you get an extra 15%. That's 45% off your entire order. Support our show and check them out at CONZURI.com and use our code ALLSTEELERS. I'm going to wait. I waited until right now to make this grand opening box reveal. Good old Kanzuri's double boxed. I think that's what I love the most about this is double boxed. Flip it over. Oh, it's got that new shoe smell. You know what I'm saying? A little drip on the outside, a little drip on the inside. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. Not only do Kanzuri shoes make you up to 2.8 inches taller, but they're also incredibly stylish and comfortable. These are not old men Velcro shoes. You'd get compliments on your Kanzuris even if they didn't make you taller. They have styles for every occasion too. Smart, casual, sporty, you name it. The height insoles are actually built into the shoe so no one could tell you're getting a secret height boost. The brand is also hidden on the shoes and the packaging, and it's really the ultimate height hack. Life's short, but you don't have to be. It's time to level up your playing field, boys. Maybe update your dating profile to 6 feet. Kanzuri is an absolute game changer when it comes to your dating life. On top of the 30% off the site, our listeners get an extra exclusive 15% off discount at Kanzuri.com with our code AllSteelers. That's a total of 5% on your order. Use our code AllSteelers at Kanzuri.com. Go to CONZURI.com with our code AllSteelers. When I want to get high, I put on a pair of Kanzuris. And as we could only guess from here, JJ Watt at some point this season will make his way to Pittsburgh or summer or whatever and at least hang out with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is the closest we have ever gotten to a JJ Watt, TJ Watt partnership. Derek Watt. Yeah, he's not around. TJ Watt, JJ Watt, JJ Watt putting on the black and gold with lack of a better phrase there. JJ Watt putting on the black and gold. It's stupid news. Excited in my head. I'm just like, oh, this is definitely a little bit alarm worthy.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, look, like clearly JJ has a ton of respect for Mike Tomlin. I don't think that's going to lessen when JJ comes and gets to spend a little bit of time with Mike. I think JJ is actually retired. I don't think he's going to pull a Tom Brady and come back. But look, like it only makes it more likely. Like it's not a. I suppose it's not completely implausible right now, but I think it also just speaks to like how much respect Mike Tomlin has in this league. And that's a cool thing to see. I mean, like when you think about free agents coming here, when you think about players who, when you think about the respect that like players have for him, I feel like it gives you a lot of confidence that Mike Tomlin is able to, not that you like needed any more confidence in him, but the fact that he's able to rally a room, that he has guys who, aren't just playing football for the Pittsburgh Steelers because it's their job, but that they actually care about this guy that's leading them and they respect him, and that, there's some real juice behind what they're doing every day.
Yeah. Tomlin continues to show us, and even, Steelers fans are Steelers fans, love Steelers fans, but at the same time, they are just the nastiest group of human beings with the smallest patience in the world. And a lot of them, they're not fans of Mike Tomlin at this point. Want him gone. The league, there is not a single person in the NFL, not one, not a retired one in Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown or Ben Roethlisberger or whoever that says Mike Tomlin is not one of the greatest, is not one of the most respected men in human are in the NFL. So I agree. Like, Mike T is Mike T. I was watching Bussin' with the Boys yesterday, and they were going on about the Antonio Brown stuff, about how he doesn't actually own the empire, and he has not paying his employees. His coach quit and then came back, and now I don't know. It's pure chaos, as we could all imagine it was going to be. But even then, we're like, if there's one big takeaway about this, it's shout out Mike Tomlin, because the guy is one of the greatest coaches of all time. And the respect is there. But I think going off of that conversation, you get JJ Watt in the building, and I'm creating a story out of nothing here. I get it, but I'm going to keep the optimism high. You get JJ Watt in the building. What's more enticing? What gets those football juices flowing more than watching your brother out there at practice dominate the field and just thinking, dude, I could be playing on this team right now. Like, the Steelers are going to look damn good this summer. They're not going to look bad. They're not going to be, schlobs out there. They're going to have a Kenny Pickett, who's a stud. You're going to have Najee Harris, who is the most intimidating running back in the NFL outside of Derrick Henry when it just comes to watching this guy in practice. Now you got Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. Everybody knows about George Pickens. Allen Robinson's in town. You got a new offensive line, nasty Broderick Jones out there. And then boom, TJ's just chilling there right in the back saying, hey, what's up? Oh, and Patrick Peterson's in town, friend of JJ Watt's. They could be hanging out. I don't know. And then Mike Tomlin just plays a little magic. I'm sure he cracks a joke like, hey, you coming to Pittsburgh? Ooh, you going to sign here? I bet you. You know, I'm not going to say he does it. I don't think he does. But I bet you he goes home and he has a conversation with his wife about, maybe.
Yeah, he shuts the door at home when he gets back home, and he turns to his wife and she says, "Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it."
There's
the gears are already turning in his head.
Yeah, the second he gets back in that car, which I'm sure is just a ginormous vehicle because he's a ginormous.
It has to.
Yep. Yeah. But it's the second he shuts the door on his ginormous Escalade or something and drives away, he's thinking, damn, maybe I can make this trip to Latrobe every day. Maybe that's a good time. I'm just saying, I would not shut the door on a JJ Watt potential something going on here. I think this is the best opportunity the Steelers have had ever to land this guy. Like, hands down. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you got last thoughts here on JJ Watt?
No, I think you got it.
All right, he's coming to Pittsburgh. There it is. End of story. Kyle Van Noy, another name to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pro Football Focus named this guy the landing spot, or the Steelers the top landing spot for him. He's a former Patriot, which you know very well. Right. Spent a lot of time there. Spent last season with the LA Chargers. Started 13 games for them. He's had 5 sacks. I was looking up his stats the other day. He's 32 years old. He's only had 1 season with less than 5 sacks since 2017. So this guy still knows how to put up numbers. He still knows how to contribute off the bench, even if that's not like, the most impressive stat line. It's a pretty good one for a 32-year-old. You look at this guy, you think, yes, no, maybe we're reaching a little bit. Maybe we're overlooking Nick Herbig. Or do you say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense?
I think it makes sense from a football perspective. Like that, I think you'd add in a vacuum. You'd add Kyle Van Noy if you can. You could use some depth at linebacker. He can still play, like you said. I don't know if he's the same guy that he was when he was New England, and I don't know if he made any All-Pro teams, but he was definitely a Pro Bowler. He was the best linebacker on a bunch of Super Bowl, maybe 1 or 2 Super Bowl teams. It's hard to keep track of all those championships the Patriots win. But you just wonder about the price. So I think he was making like $2.2 million in LA. That seems like a reasonable number. You maybe sign him for a little less just because of his age.
Yes.
But from a football perspective, yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense, and I think you definitely explore it at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. Just so here, because lots of Super Bowls. I get it. Nobody likes the Patriots. He is a 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Patriots, and he did make their all 2010s team, but he's actually never even made a Pro Bowl.
Really?
He's never even been on a Pro Bowl roster. Yeah.
That's wild. He was definitely good enough, I feel like. You feel like if you can walk and chew gum at the same time, you can make a Pro Bowl.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, yeah, Tyler Huntley was a quarterback in the Pro Bowl last year. We talked about whether it was him or 7 touchdown, 9 interception Kenny Pickett. So, yeah, it was, sometimes it gets rough pickings down there. But, I look at Kyle Van Noy, I agree with you. I think in a football vacuum, this is a guy that comes in here. He's got the ability to play outside linebacker. He could play off-ball linebacker if you need him to as well. But at the same time, like if I'm Kyle Van Noy, I'm not really interested in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I don't look at this as a place that I could thrive at 32 years old. Like he's not looking to sit on the bench. You're playing football because you want to play football and you could still contribute to a football team. If you're the 4th outside linebacker in Pittsburgh, you're playing like literally 0 snaps on defense during a game. If you're the 3rd or the 4th off-ball linebacker or inside linebacker in Pittsburgh, you're playing 5 snaps a game if you're lucky. Like that's just it's not a place for him. And now if Nick Herbig decides that he's only an off-ball linebacker and the Steelers realize quick that this guy can't do it, then you go out and get Kyle Van Noy. But until then, you're looking at this and going, Mark Robinson is who they want to be the 3rd inside linebacker. And even if Mark Robinson doesn't work out, they're going to give him the first opportunity. And then Nick Herbig is who they want to be the next outside linebacker behind TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. So he's not going to get an opportunity there. And I think he's got less of an opportunity at outside than he does on the inside. I just think for him, it doesn't make as much sense as it does for the Steelers. But I think that's how it's going to be for everybody. Like Jadeveon Clowney was rumored to come to Pittsburgh and be an option for them after the NFL draft. again, like, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to come here and play nothing? Like, as crazy as it sounds that 2 weeks ago we were talking about, oh, this is the biggest need and it's still a hole that they have. Quincy Roche, if he could do anything at all, is not a bad fourth option for the Steelers. If somebody goes down, that drastically changes, but you can't approach the season saying, oh, well, when TJ gets hurt, when Alex Highsmith misses these games, you have to approach it saying, okay, well, if everybody's healthy, we have a pretty good lineup. Right. If we add another one, it's better, definitely, but I don't know if it's the best option.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about this not being the place Van Noy might want to go to. But
yeah,
I want to. You said they want Mark Robinson to be that third inside linebacker. You really think they're that high on him? Because I don't know. I don't feel like he showed that much last year to like give you confidence that he can do that.
I don't think he showed enough. Like, in my opinion, I think he's still a very big developmental piece. But yeah, from what I've heard, the Steelers, like, they want him to be the next guy that they could, like, they want him to develop into what a Landon Roberts is supposed to be this season so that he could be that moving forward. And I think, like, do I think Mark Robinson could do everything as an inside linebacker? Definitely not. But do I think he could be Robert Spillane, without the ability to cover and pass? Yes. I think he's a guy that if you're like, go in there on 3rd and 1, run straight in the middle and hit somebody as hard as you can, he's going to do it, like, and I do think that from, just from everything I know and have heard this offseason, he's the guy that they just hope, they're going to give him an opportunity. I don't think it means anything. I don't look at it and say this is a guarantee. They're just going to throw everything away because they want to give Mark Robinson an opportunity. But I do look at him as like a reason that they wouldn't sign somebody.
That's interesting because I again, like in a football sense, like, yeah, you're taking Kyle Van Noy over Mark Robinson all day. But if you have an eye towards the future, and yeah, you're like their linebacker spots are pretty much set with Holcomb, Roberts, and then Highsmith and Watt on the outside. Like, your top line's good enough that you can get away with Mark Robinson as your third guy and not because. Well, but like Kyle Van Noy wouldn't be that expensive of a.
No,
I don't know.
Super cheap. But I think that's the same thing as like people who want Miles Jack back. Like they're just like, well, he'd be a great fourth option. It's like, no, he would be. He would be a phenomenal fourth option, like as good as it gets. But if you call Miles Jack and you're like, hey, dude, do you want to sit fourth on the depth chart? Or you call Kyle Van Noy and you're like, hey, man, you want to come in here and compete for a third edge rusher spot? He's like, no, I want to be the third edge rusher. I want to be the backup inside linebacker. Like I want to have an opportunity. And these guys will have those opportunities. People are going to get hurt in training camp. People are going to get hurt in the preseason. They don't need training camp. Like these guys they could come in here week 1 and contribute to a football team at this point in their career. And I think that they'll rather wait. Now, if somebody goes down and the Steelers suffer an injury, all of these guys are on the table. You know what I mean? Yeah. Miles Jack, Leonard Floyd, who's still out there. Quan Alexander still out there. Kyle Van Noy, as we said. AJ Klein, Anthony Barr. Like there are huge names out there that you could wait on.
Why does no one want linebackers? Like,
I think they do. I just think that they, you look at it. For one, I think that the linebacker position's value has decreased significantly in the last couple of years, just because, you're asked to do so many things, but at the same time, teams don't run base packages that much. They run a lot of everything else, and you take linebackers off the field a lot of the time. And I also think that the inside linebacker, like core that, like you got to think like the guys that signed this free agency, Levante David, David Long, Tremaine Edmonds, Aziz Al-Shir, Jermaine Pratt, Bobby Wagner, Eric Kendricks, Leighton Landerish, TJ Edwards, Devin Bush was on there, Denzel Perryman. Like there were big names that went. And these are just kind of like the aftermarket guys that are still out there. Some of them shock me, but I just think that teams are like, they're just looking at it like, well, if we can't develop it, if we can't develop this guy, we'll sign this guy, but we're going to give this guy an opportunity first.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's true. Like, so the longer these names stick around, like their price isn't going to go up.
Their price does not change whatsoever. It's the sign in Melvin Ingram at the end of the summer, sign in Trey Turner at the end of the summer, like these veterans that just could come in here and start. And, as long as you don't ask them to do too much, they should be fine.
Right.
And I think that's what, they're going to wait. They're going to wait and see. But I don't think that either one of those names, and by the other one, Miles Jack, makes any sense for this. It makes perfect sense for the Steelers. Doesn't make any sense for them. Like they're not sitting around going, if they don't get a job by the start of the season, yes. Right now, with a whole summer left, not a chance. You know,
Mhm.
you're going to make that signing early, and then somebody's going to go down somewhere, and you're going to be the Mason Rudolph of outside linebackers chilling. You know, speaking of Mason Rudolph, did you hear that the Washington Commanders called all 31 other football teams last year looking for a quarterback? All 31 of them. And that means the Steelers were on the phone, and you couldn't get a deal done for any of them?
With the Commanders, so I feel like they don't really know how to trade. Like they would,
No.
yeah, like
But it doesn't matter. What are you asking? Like, if they were like, hey, we'll give you a 6th round pick for Mason Rudolph, you're like, yep, sounds good, man.
Yeah.
We can make that happen. Like, what are you waiting for? If it was a 5th rounder, you now don't have to trade twice to make that move for Nick Herbig. You know,
Yeah.
like
what? That's crazy. That's really wild.
Yes.
I mean, I have to. Yeah, that does not make any sense.
No,
that
unless they wouldn't take him. Unless they were like, no, Mason, we don't want Mason. We'll take Kenny or Mitch. Not Mason.
Yeah, did they think either of those guys would be available? Like they have to have been calling for.
They called Mason. Everybody. Apparently they even called looking for Mahomes. And I'm like, what are you giving up? Like, what are you giving up for Mahomes? We'll give you the whole team. Here, Andy. Yeah, you could have stock. Now. You now own the team. We'll give this. Yeah. We'll give you the team. Dan Snyder will just gift it to you. Screw the $6 billion. The Washington Commanders are now yours. Like, that's what you're giving up for Patrick Mahomes. That just doesn't. I don't know. But for the Steelers end of that, like, even Mitch, like somebody, like you're telling me, and I get it. There were injuries that were happening, but I don't know. I'm making a move, you know?
Yeah.
I'm definitely dealing one of them. And I'm sure that when Mason heard that, he was not happy about it. He couldn't have been sitting there going, are you kidding me? Right. You had an offer in place. You didn't make any, you didn't do it. You just let me sit on the bench and bitch about it all year.
Right. They're just torturing him. Like it was
awful. Got to feel bad for him. And he'd have a spot. He'd have an opportunity to show himself. Now he's waiting and maybe he'll get a job. Maybe he won't. Yeah, sucks. Mason got the worst end of whatever the Steelers did. To, you know, you could talk Chris Oladokun and how they screwed him. Doesn't even come close to what they did to Mason Rudolph. Like, you know, I don't think Mason Rudolph's that good of a quarterback. I feel awful for the guy and what the Steelers did for him. 100%.
Absolutely.
All right, sticking with the quarterbacks. Last thing I want to talk about here. Nick Foles becomes a free agent, released from the Indianapolis Colts. Big Dick Nick on the open market. The Steelers signed 2 undrafted free agents, Tanner Morgan out of Minnesota and Hunter Johnson out of Northwestern, played for Clemson, former 5-star recruit. I don't think either of those guys are locks. And I certainly don't think that, you know, you just bring both of them into the summer guaranteed and then say, this is it. This is the end all do all. Is Nick Foles, is that an option for the Steelers?
It's an option. Yeah. But like, again, same question as Van Noy. Like, is he going to want to come in and be the 3rd quarterback on the roster? Like where I get it. He's been kind of a career backup, but you're telling me there's no one who could use even like a backup quarter, like a 2nd string quarter. Cause I don't think he would beat out Mid. Like, I don't think
he beats out Mitch.
Down.
No.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same question as Van Noy. Like Steelers would love it, but is he willing to kind of take a step back and be a 3rd stringer?
Was he a 3rd stringer last year? What was because it was Matt Ryan, Ellinger,
and Nick Foles sat behind Sam Ellinger. Because I watched Sam Ellinger.
Ellinger went in, right? He replaced Matt Ryan. I don't watch much Colts football.
I don't either. Well, I know Ellinger played against the Patriots, and he was god awful. I think he threw like 3 picks. They got shut out. Played the Patriots defense in fantasy that week, and I think they scored like 30 points.
Foles started 2 games, played only 3 of them last year, went 0 for 2. 4 interceptions, zero touchdowns. Maybe Nick Foles isn't that, you know, maybe Big Nick is less big dick these days.
He made a deal with the devil to win that Super Bowl, and
worth it though. 100% worth it. You know, like if you're in the NFL, if you're like, no, I'm going to try to last this one out. Like, no, he's made 87. I saw the numbers, like $87 million or something in his career. Won a Super Bowl, has one of the greatest nicknames of all time, a play called after him, and he will forever go down as, you know, Eli Manning is the GOAT slayer. But what Nick Foles did to Tom Brady and the Patriots in that Super Bowl, I mean,
he never has to buy a drink in Philadelphia ever again. Ever
again for the rest of the time. Like, you know, that's worth the deal. Worth it. If I'm, you know, the devil came to me with that one, I'd be like, all right, give me a couple of minutes. Let me think about it. Let me drink my coffee, have a minute. But I look at Foles as definitely an option. I don't know. Like, I was more sold on the younger quarterbacks and the bring these guys in during the draft before I saw who it was. Tanner Morgan does not impress me. I was not impressed with him in college. And, I actually saw a couple of his games. I don't know how I ran across Big Ten Minnesota football, but I did. Wasn't overly impressed with him. And then Hunter Johnson just never really worked out. Like, you end up in Northwestern. That doesn't impress anybody. Doesn't move the needle at all. You couldn't beat out anybody in Clemson. I don't know. Like, I'm not, if it was a Clayton Tune, if it was a Jerron Holland, a Stenson Bennett, I'm like, yo, these guys this is it. This is cool. Feel good about these guys. Undrafted guys, less impressed. Look at them as just maybe.
I mean, I'm a little higher on Morgan, I think, than you. I don't think Johnson is. I don't really see him.
Yeah, he's from Northwestern. Northwestern doesn't even play football.
Yeah, Northwestern did not win a game on American soil last year. They had one win, and they won in Ireland.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's not. He's
no,
not.
Yeah, and you look at the names that he couldn't beat out at Northwestern. Like, that's a little damning to me, especially for a guy who was so talented. I'm a little higher on Morgan. I'm much more comfortable bringing using him as your third quarterback. Be cheaper than Foles.
Yeah, maybe
if you care about that, but yeah, it wouldn't be a huge.
What's $1 million though? You know what I mean? You pay him $1 million, and the Steelers always bring 4 quarterbacks into the summer. Always. Now this year, I think it could be a different exception because usually Ben Roethlisberger is the QB1, so like, you're not. He's not playing every snap during the summer. Kenny Pickett, you probably want to be out there as much as humanly possible, with the other guys kind of splitting it. So I could see maybe they only bring in 3, but if they're thinking 4. And Johnson, I mean, we'll see on Friday if Johnson has anything going for him. But if he doesn't, I mean, I'm giving Nick a call. I'm just, hey, what's up? You want to come work this summer? Like, think of the names still out there that you could look at. He's easily the best one available. Carson Wentz, no chance. Get him as far away from any football team as humanly possible. Matt Ryan, I hope he lands somewhere. It's not going to be in Pittsburgh. Bryce Perkins, possibly. Not going to say he's better than Nick Foles. Cam Newton, no chance. Chase Daniel,
no.
Yeah, like not over Nick Foles. Doesn't move the needle. Joe Flacco, I highly doubt he's coming to Pittsburgh.
That would be good.
Joe Flacco would be awesome. I would be so hyped to have Joe Flacco in the building. I think the Steelers respect the hell out of this guy, but I also think that both sides understand that, like, you have a legacy in Baltimore. Don't screw it up. Don't ruin anything for these guys. You keep going down the list. Josh Johnson would easily be my favorite. The guy is a GOAT. Like, don't care what anybody says. One of the greatest backup quarterbacks of all time. Never disappoints. But again, I don't think that he's over Nick Foles. And then Josh Rosen, no chance at all. And then your only other option there is Mason Rudolph, unless you're going after Teddy Bridgewater. But that's not happening either. Like, I just think Nick Foles is like, late addition to the group here. Not really a bunch of backup quarterback spots open. Give him a call. Say, hey, what's $1 million? Come work out and try to be our third string quarterback. If the Steelers wouldn't trade Mason Rudolph to the Commanders last year in the middle of the season when they obviously didn't need him, you don't want Nick Foles around? Like, if you're that nervous about injuries or whatever, you're telling me that you're okay with Tanner Morgan coming in here, Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
And at the very least, I feel like they could hold on to Nick Foles and trade him for something. Like, some quarterback's going to get hurt.
Yeah, that's another thing. Is him and Mitch Trubisky by week 8, somebody goes down somewhere. Yeah. San Francisco loses quarterbacks like they lose wallets. Car keys, quarterbacks, the same thing out there.
Yeah.
By the middle of the season, they could be calling for Mitch and for Nick Foles.
Yeah.
And Mitch is, as much as you want to say, like, Mitch is a trade target to a lot of these teams, he's not, because of his price tag. Like, that's a huge chunk of change to take on at any point during the season. If Nick Foles is here for $1 million, somebody's going to call and say, hey, look, we need a quarterback. Are you willing to give up Nick? Yes. Yeah. Yes, I am. Nobody's calling for Tanner Morgan. They're just not. Like, it's just not part of the deal. So I'm going to say maybe. Do I think it happens soon? No, I think Friday, Saturday, and I guess Sunday would be the retreat for the rookies, but Friday and Saturday would kind of determine a lot of that for me. But I'm not walking into rookie minicamp looking to be impressed with the quarterbacks whatsoever. Like, just not on my agenda. All right, with that, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Find us anywhere you get your podcasts and check out all of mine and Steven's work at allsteelers.com and insidethepanthers.com. We will be back on Wednesday. Enjoy a beautiful week here in the Berg. Peace.